Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this episode of 30 Minutes to President's Club. My name is Armand Farouk, and I'm here with my co-host, Nick Cegelski. And folks, we have an outstanding episode from the one and only Mark Nietzel. He is a commercial sales manager over at Procore Technologies. He is selling and teaching his reps how to sell massive enterprise deals to these big construction companies. Nick, why should people listen?
Mark is extremely good at setting clear expectations with the customer around what the outcome he is going for is. Way too many salespeople tiptoe around the purpose of the meeting and what they're looking to accomplish, both in discovery calls, but also when it's time to ask the prospect for their business. And this was a very good episode around how you can be clear, transparent, and frankly, earn your prospects' freaking respect by telling them, yeah, I'm a salesperson. This is where we are looking to go. Great episode if you want to learn how to talk to your buyers like a human being and not a dork.
This episode is where you are looking to go.
All right, Mark, welcome to the show. We start every single episode with your top 3 actionable takeaways. Let's get your 3.
All right, let's do it. Let's start with number 1. My first tip is a crystal clear outcome. So typically when you're doing a purpose agenda outcome to kick off a sales call, which I'm sure you've all got coaching about, agenda is important, et cetera, all that jazz. But the outcome, I think, is really important. And what you state as the outcome needs to be mutually agreed upon with the prospective customer. It needs to be clear and succinct, and it needs to be context specific. Every deal is different. So I thought of a few examples of like context specific outcomes to set that I'll rattle off here. You've got your classic inbound deal. Maybe it's a fast moving deal with a compelling event that wants to buy your product. So an example of an outcome setting for that type of opportunity might sound something like this. Hopefully our outcome today is that you've seen enough of the products to know that you want to buy it or not. And we can begin to speak about the commercial terms of an agreement. That's a very different outcome from, let's call it an enterprise long sales cycle introductory call where you're not going to be like asking them for their business at the end of this meeting. So an outcome might sound something like, hopefully our outcome today is we've learned enough about your business to know that you're a potentially good fit for our product. And you've seen enough of the commercial for us to know that this is worth continuing to share your time. How does that sound? It's a very different outcome. I also think outcome setting can be really important in closing stages. So 2 examples of closing stage outcomes are if you're having a good meeting and you think you're going to close this business, an ideal outcome is by the end of this call, we've confirmed the products you want to subscribe to, and we have the necessary information to actually send you a contract. Are you all on the same page with me? That's kind of a closing outcome that I would set. And then maybe finally a tactical piece of advice is, let's say you're not going to close it, but you do need to figure out some technical stuff. Hey, at the end of this meeting, our ideal outcome is we are getting a thumbs up or a thumbs down from your IT department on whether or not we are compatible. It should be clear by the end of today's call. Do you agree?
Beautiful. What's number 2?
Number 2 is casual value selling. And value selling is kind of a buzzword in sales. It means a lot of different things to a lot of different companies. What I think when I think of casual value selling is, as a rep, you've got to be comfortable and adept at kind of calculating ROI or calculating value on the fly. That's kind of like my big tip number 2. And whatever that means for your business. People sell different products. Calculating ROI means different things. But for me, I work at Procore Technologies. I sell to construction companies. I sell a project management software to construction companies. So for us, we're constantly calculating the cost of the inefficiencies that they have without Procore. And then ideally, we're calculating ROI on the fly with them and giving them a rough estimate of where Procore can return for them. Again, 2 examples of that when I'm talking to a contractor today are something like this. Okay, obviously you guys know your numbers a lot more than I do, but most of the contractors that I speak with, they can be losing upwards of $10,000 to $20,000 to $30,000 of extra work order tickets on a job. Is it reasonable to assume you're in the same boat? And then based off the demo I just gave you of Procore, do you think we could fix, I don't know, half of that? Is that reasonable? Another example of that would be, labor is a really big expense for construction companies. So I would say, hey, let's not overthink this. Other contractors like you are aiming for a 1% labor productivity increase using Procore, using my product. If we can get you anywhere above 0.5%, you're going to be breaking even on your Procore subscription. Do you think we're going to be getting close to that based off what you saw today?
Round us out. What's number 3?
Okay, number 3 is talking shop. It's kind of like a casual term to describe talking business when you're asking somebody for their business. I think the key takeaway that I would give to the group in terms of how to talk shop effectively is I think it's important to be transparent about your role in the evaluation and own who you are. You're not an unbiased consultant. You are a biased salesperson that's trying to sell your product, but that doesn't mean that you're a sleazy salesperson. There's nothing wrong with your products. I try to just own that in a way that's confident and knows the value of my product. By doing so, I think I earn a lot more trust and credibility with my buyer rather than trying to buddy up to them or be best friends with them or in some way. I put my cards on the table when it comes time to actually talk business. A talk track I will often use is to be straightforward and say, hey, I think the whole point of us being here is to figure out whether or not the juice is worth the squeeze. Your current provider costs X, for example. My provider costs X. Is that delta justified? That's what we're here to figure out. We're trying to figure out whether or not the juice is worth it. Let's put our cards on the table and figure it out together. I think owning that is a really important part of asking for someone's business.
So Mark, in our prep, we talked about all these different ways you can earn an executive's respect, earn a prospect's respect, and oftentimes break a lot of the myths around a salesperson hiding their real role. So let's start with the first call in your sales cycle. You gave us a couple of examples, but how are you setting the tone differently from all of the other sellers in the first 5 minutes of a discovery call?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the way that I'm setting the tone differently than other sellers in the first 5 minutes of a discovery call is I'll actually piggyback on some of the language I used on my third tip on talking shop. I think I'm very transparent with them during the early stages of the sale that like my goal is to eventually earn their business. And I recognize I'm not asking for their business on the first call. This is just a discovery call, but I'm being very clear with them that like, hey, long term, the goal of our discussions is to figure out whether or not my product is a good fit for your business. And if it is, I'm going to eventually ask you for your business. But right now, goal is just to figure out whether or not we're a good fit. So I'm going to start with some questions. I want to learn a little bit more about your business. I'm sure you want to learn more about my product. So we're going to start with some questions. But the point of my questions is to figure out whether or not we're a good fit. Because ultimately, if we are a good fit, like I'm on a tell it. And that's why we're here today. And so I think just being a little bit more transparent about that up front removes some of the awkwardness of them not trusting you or keeping their cards close to them if we're just clear with each other that it's a business transaction.
Mark, I have to imagine that the quality of the questions that you ask in that first interaction often make or break whether or not the buyer actually respects you. And if you show up and you're like, the first question is, so what keeps you up at night? They're probably going to groan and be like, can you just show me a demo? So can you talk to me about the types of questions that you will ask to earn somebody's respect?
Working at Procore, I sell construction management software. And so the folks that I'm selling into they're the ones that are doing the work. They're building buildings, they're building highways, they're building roads. The industry knowledge that you have to have in order to have an effective conversation with them is important. So how I would answer your question, Nick, is to say the questions that I'm asking, the quality of my questions, they are representing my knowledge of the industry. And so I do a lot of social selling. And so instead of saying, what keeps you up at night? I go, hey, I talked to a lot of other contractors and these are the top 3 things that they're suffering from. It's labor productivity. It's not getting paid on change orders. It's paperwork that's being emailed back and forth and it's not being digitally shared on a mobile app. And so people are losing stuff in translation. These are the things that I talk about with contractors every day. Are you guys suffering from the same things? Is that what's keeping you up at night? And the credibility that I'm establishing by basically educating these folks that I know what are the most common pain points because I do this every day. Are you in the same boat or is there something different that you're suffering from? That earns a lot more trust and credibility on the forefront instead of just digging for pain like a classic salesperson without really the context behind it. So that's how I have more quality questions.
Could you give an example of what the wrong way to do this would be? I know you're a manager now and you oversee other reps who are running these discovery calls. What are the types of questions that sellers will ask that will lose trust or diminish credibility?
I think the biggest ones that kind of make me cringe or make me feel like my reps aren't going in the right direction are they'll ask very like textbook pain digging questions before they've earned that credibility or that trust. And it doesn't sound specific to my prospect's pain. It sounds like they read it from a Sandler selling system book. No shame to seller selling. I read that when I was an early seller, but they'll go into a call and they'll say, Armand, what are your top 3 business goals for the next 6 months? Or if you can wave a magic wand and fix your problems right now, what would it be? And those questions aren't inherently wrong. It's just when they're asked without the proper credibility and you haven't earned that trust yet or that respect from the prospect yet, I think that immediately kind of puts the guard up from the prospect. And they're like, okay, man, he's digging for pain. Like he's trying to find out like where I'm suffering from right now.
Yeah.
And so those are the ones that sound wrong, in my opinion. These really like cookie cutter, direct pain funnel questions with no context behind them.
Oftentimes I find that when a seller is asking questions like that, the problem is it feels like a little bit of a sales trap that you're trying to lay for your prospects, where people are asking questions like, what keeps you up at night? Or if you could wave a magic wand, what would you do instead? Instead, what you need to do is you need to demonstrate that you understand their business enough and you can meet them halfway on the common problems that they have so they can say, yeah, that's the one, or at least correct you because you understood those 3, versus forcing them to literally do all of the work of laying out their business priorities for you because you literally couldn't ask you more specific.
I'm going to chime in because oftentimes, especially as you move up segment at Procore, my current company, like you get less inbound transactional deals and you're doing more outbound selling where you need to earn the rights for these people's time. And so if you begin an outbound call with rattling off a bunch of pain funnel questions without meeting them halfway there, like you said, Armand, these guys are like, well, what the heck? Like you're the one that called me and you're just drilling me with like 21 questions to begin the call, instead of meeting them in the middle and showing that I understand the industry challenges that you guys run into. I understand the common points. Am I off base with you guys or am I close? That's a lot more, we're working together there as opposed to interrogating you.
Well, this is an area that I think a ton of sellers screw things up because they have been so indoctrinated that they have to have a perfect talk to listen ratio and they have to get to pain, that they think the right way to run one of these calls is to show up and ask a ton of questions from that book that they read and get the customer talking. And you are totally right, Mark, in that the buyer's like, you reached out to me. I don't even really know what you do.
Yeah.
And so when you just ask all of those questions, to your point, Armand, that feel like traps, your buyer is sitting there thinking, great, the more information that I give to this person who I don't really even know or respect yet, I just know they're going to turn this around and use exactly what I say, whatever I say, to try to sell to me. And so you're right, you have to meet them at least halfway, maybe even sometimes 60, 65% of the way there. And I'm curious to hear from you. You talked about laying out some of the like highest level pains that a customer might have. They're losing paperwork because they don't have any sort of digital mobile app. They've got a ton of change orders. They're stressed about that stuff. Where do you take the call from there, assuming the buyer's, yeah, that sounds pretty similar to my experience, and maybe they go on like a 20-second riff complaining about a bunch of change orders. Where do you take the call there with an executive?
I think some executives in the construction industry are down to get really into the technical nitty-gritty. There are some leaders in the construction space that are actually very tactical and operational, and so they want to talk shop on product. And some of them are a little bit more high level, like business goals, business outcomes a little bit. They don't want to get into the weeds, but if somebody is agreeing with the challenges that I posited to them, hey, these are the top 3 things I hear from contractors. Are you suffering from the same stuff? And they're like, yeah, we're in the same boat. I probably want to take it one level deeper before I start to prove to them that Procore can actually solve their problem. So I might say, okay, cool. Well, I can think of a million stories based off this week's worth of calls I've had with contractors. Can you give me an example? Like, did you lose money on a change order on a job? Did you have rework because you were looking at the wrong set of drawing plans? So you poured a bunch of concrete in the wrong area of the job. Can you give me something real? And I'll show you how Procore solves for that during the demo today. I'll actually show you an example of how we fix for that. So I'm looking for something to hang my hat on so that when I actually show the product during the call or my solutions engineer shows the product, I can say, hey, dude, remember that rework issue that you ran into? This is actually how Procore would fix for that on the mobile app. This is our drawings tool. It's going to show you how the real-time drawings are showing up in your field guy's hands in real time. So you wouldn't make a mistake pouring concrete in the wrong place.
So to recap, you're finding what bucket of pain they're in. Typically, you experience problems like this or this. They pick one of those. You're like, all right, let's make it real. Give me an example. And we've talked about this on past episodes where we'll oftentimes ask a magic moment question. of, my guess is you didn't wake up yesterday. When did you actually realize that was a problem? And you'll almost always get a painful story in return. Now, one challenge is sellers will just keep interrogating from here. And then eventually the prospect is, can you just tell me what you do or tell me how you're going to help? And so for you, like, how do you start to balance that give and take from this point in the call?
I hate to say it depends, but I think it depends on the type of call that I'm on. So I'll start by saying, if I'm expected to show product on this call, and I actually think a lot of contractors do expect to see our product on the call, like they don't always give you 60 minutes of discovery and then they schedule another call. So if I'm expected to show product on the call, I'll dangle the carrot in front of them and say, hey, thank you so much for sharing that example. I'm going to show you how we fix that in about 20 minutes when we get in the demo. So put a pin in that. I'm going to show it to you. Do you mind if I ask for a couple more examples just so I know the top 3 or 5 things you want to cover on today's demo? And if I can identify 3 buckets, Armand, maybe 4 buckets, that means I have enough ammunition to run a good demo. If these people give me 3 or 4 examples in the first 20 minutes of the call, great. I've got 40 minutes to show them how I'm going to solve for all 4 of those examples. And that's my agenda for the rest of the meeting. So I try to ask for a little bit more context, a little bit more examples, but I'm telling them like, dude, I'm about to show you how we're going to fix that in just a short period of time.
Do you reset an agenda or re-anchor to the outcome before you pull the software up to show it to them? And if so, what does that sound like?
Absolutely, Nick. Love that you asked that. I used to teach my S&B reps this when I first started managing. I was managing an S&B team and I was like, hey, right before you dive headfirst into the product, which can be like a crazy, our product can do a lot of different things, reset with them. And what that typically looks like for us at Procore is we've got this nice little one-sheeter that shows all of the modules that we sell. And so we'll pull that up on the screen and we'll show the modules. And maybe we've annotated and we've drawn little boxes over the buckets they care about. So in Armand, if it's drawing, rework, and change orders for them, I've drawn boxes over the 2 buckets they care about. And I go, okay, cool. Hey, thank you guys so much for answering all these questions. Like truly the examples really help set the tone for what we want to cover in the next 40 minutes. Here's the game plan. We've got 40 minutes left. I'm going to spend 30 minutes nailing these things with you guys. I'm going to show you how we solve for all 4 of those buckets. Like you're definitely going to know by the end of this demonstration whether or not we solve for those things. And then we'll spend 5 or 10 minutes at the end of the meeting to talk about what the next steps are in this evaluation. Does that sound good with you guys? And I'm just reconfirming the game plan for the call.
What you are doing is brilliant, where I see so many sellers, they only set expectations for what's going to happen on the call up front. And you have to remember, you've gone through like a line of questioning, you've had a conversation with discovery, and now you're showing them the product. It's actually good to reestablish the expectations and tell them what you're going to show them, and then tell them what you showed them. One risk I see people run into when they show that Harbor Tour higher level demo, Mark, is the prospect is like, okay, great. They think that's all your software does. When in reality, in a 27-minute demo, you're not going to get into every single edge case, nuance, additional piece of value. And so you have to set that expectation of, I'm going to show you how we solve those 3 problems that you shared with me, the concrete in the wrong location, the missed paperwork with the change order. And then let's figure out if it makes sense to even go deeper in how we can solve 12 other problems for you. What I want to understand from you is, let's assume that demo goes well. And you're looking in the corner of your screen and you see that you've got 7 minutes left in the meeting. You anchored to an outcome multiple times up front. Talk to me about how you run the very end of that meeting.
At the end of that meeting, I want to ideally confirm that we achieved the outcome that we set out at the beginning of the meeting. So let's take the example of I gave the example of an enterprise type deal. That's a larger deal, longer sales cycle. I'm going into that intro call knowing that I might be months away from earning these people's business, but my outcome that I established with the prospect was like, we've learned enough about you to know that you're a potentially good fit for Procore. And you learned enough from my 37-minute commercial Harbor Tour of Procore that you think this is worth exploring. So I'd kind of pause, I'd wrap up the technical demo, and I'd say something like, hey, I can show you Procore for 24 straight hours. There's so many bells and whistles that I can show you. But I think our goal for today was to figure out, are y'all a good fit for us? And based off what you saw today, do you think this is worth continuing to explore? So you gave me 2 or 3 examples. I showed you 2 or 3 examples of how Procore can solve for that. What do you think? Is this worth continuing to explore? A yes or a no? And I'm really trying to hammer that outcome that we established at the end of the meeting. And if I get a positive or an affirmative, then it's just classic sales set next steps. Okay, here's what we do from here. And I try to prescribe to them an evaluation. And that's my goal at the last kind of 5 or 7 minutes of the meeting.
What do you do when you get the sense that someone's, we got to think about it or we got to debrief as a team?
You can lead someone to water, but you can't force them to drink it. Is that expression? Like, you got to respect the fact that some prospects don't want to get pinned into a corner. I will probably try to rally with them maybe once or twice just to basically ask what they have to think about or what they're curious about. So Armand, if you said to me like, hey, thanks for the meeting, learned a lot of good stuff, but we got to get together as a group and think about it. I'd play it cool and say, dude, for sure, everybody's got to think about it. I'm sure you've got a lot of internal stakeholders that you get to chat with. Just curious, based off the outcome we said at the beginning of this meeting, do you personally think we achieved that? Or do you feel like there's some questions that are still remaining?
That is really smart. What you're doing is you are anchoring back to the outcome of the meeting is not, we're going to set the next step on the books for us to reconnect. The outcome is you are going to make a personal decision as to whether or not you believe this is worth continuing to look at. And that hopefully means they're ready to set a next step, even if it's a backstop. But what you're re-anchoring to is, great, you're going to go talk to your people, but I want to hear from you. Did this solve what you were looking to solve for? Do you feel like this is worth for you continuing to explore? And hopefully that gets you to the answer of, do they see value in this or not? And then you can figure out what's the best way to get back on the calendar, understand timelines, understand what appropriate next steps might look like.
And I think that like oftentimes when prospects use that line, Armand, that, hey, I got to talk internally, that's a defense of, okay, I've seen the harbor tour. The sales rep is about to give me the full court press. I am going to dodge it by saying, I got to go talk to my peers. Let me get back to you in a couple of weeks. Send me an email. And I want to embrace that by being like, dude, that's okay. Like, I'm not asking for your business today. We actually had a far more simple outcome. So I encourage you to go talk to your teammates. But before I let you go, what do you think about the outcome we thought? And so it's disarming. I think they get it. That, dude, this guy's not trying to close the call today. Like, he's cool with me getting off the call. He just wants to know, is this a good fit or not?
I think I need to start doing that because I sometimes have prospects, like when I sell our sponsorships for 30 MPC, I'll meet with a director of demand gen. And they're like, they need other people bought in on this. And I'll go through what our sponsorships look like on the first call. And with the intent of knowing I want to go way deeper with them and share more and show more and validate audience fit for their target, etc. And then they'll be like, great, I'm going to go talk with the team. We get a reconnect on the books for a week and a half later. And then they're like, hey, the team decided we're not going to do this at all. And I'm like, wait, I wasn't asking you to buy this. And so I actually really like your line of, I'm not asking you for your business today. Can you talk to me about prescribing what an evaluation should look like for them, knowing that you can often have a very long and complex sale?
And I think this is a really important skill at Procore because many of our prospective buyers, they're not a tech company in San Francisco that's evaluated and purchased software many times before. These are construction companies that for their very analog industry, they've been doing stuff on pen and paper for a long time, or maybe they have one software, it's their accounting software. They don't have a procurement department. They're not used to buying software. And we're naive and we make the assumption that they know what they're doing. And so we ask them, so what is your decision process? Dude, these people don't have a decision process. Like, they're taking a demo of Procore and now they got to figure out whether or not they want to buy it. So I really try to coach our reps to be prescriptive on it. And I try to simplify it. Even though Procore can be a really complicated product that has a lot of different bells and whistles, I try to make it really simple for the prospect. And I say, let's role play. I wrapped up a demo one. It's a good demo one. They're happy enough with the product. And I asked Nick, hey, the outcome today was you've learned enough to figure out whether or not this is a good fit for you and you'd be interested in continuing the conversation. Are you? And you might say, yes, Nick, and you're interested. And I go, okay, cool. So like an evaluation with Procore typically looks something like this. There's two main things we got to check off. The first thing is technical fit. Does the product do what you want? And that might take 1 call, 2 calls, 5 calls. That might require us to actually fly out to your office and doing it in person. But that's the big ticket thing we got to figure out. We got to show you enough of the product that you know that it works. So let's schedule some calls to do that. And then after that, it's commercial terms. How much does this thing cost? Is the juice worth the squeeze? How do we implement it, etc.? So we've got 2 major boxes to check off: technical fit and commercial terms. You want to start scheduling that stuff.
Can you talk to me about when and how you address pricing with your customers?
When I was new to selling and I was beginning my career as a salesperson, like there are some classic kind of tropes around like being careful, sharing pricing too early, sharing pricing to somebody who's not in a position of power. And all of those things have truth to them. I think, yeah, you don't want to give away all your cards on a demo one with somebody who can't make a decision. But I think a lot of the themes of what I've been talking about with you today are about like leading with confidence, leading with transparency, like owning the fact that you're a salesperson. And so I've leaned pretty hard into being comfortable discussing price with Procore. But if it's early in a sales cycle and somebody's really hammering me on price, I think it's fair to give them a range. And so there's some really easy ways to quote people on pricing for Procore that it's dependent on the products they subscribe to. It's dependent on the amount of revenue. We're a revenue-based subscription model. We don't like charge per seat or per user. And so I can actually quote them on some percentage points. So I can say something like, if somebody's grilling me on price, I can be like, dude, for sure, happy to talk about price with you. It could be anywhere between 0.1 to 0.3 of a percentage point of your revenue. And that depends on the number of products you're subscribing to. So I know that's not a perfect answer right now, but like realistically, I don't know what products you want and I don't know what volume you're going to subscribe to. So I can't give you a more accurate number until we get farther into this evaluation. I'm not scared of price. I'm not hiding the 8-ball, but I'm also pushing back slightly on them and saying, dude, I just don't know enough yet to give you an accurate quote. And then as we get farther into the evaluation and it seems like they're heading in the direction of a technical fit, like the product is a good fit for them, it's pretty natural for a company to be like, okay, we kind of like what we're seeing. What does this thing cost? And if it's appropriate to talk about it, then I'll own it and I'll say, yeah, cool. Let's pause with technical demo. Let's do 20 minutes on pricing. I'll tell you how we price. I'll tell you what factors are important to Procore's pricing, and I'll spit out a proposal for you.
Mark, I think most people are quite used to seat-based pricing when they buy software. And I have to imagine you get some pushback on the model through which you sell your software. Can you talk to me about some of the common objections you get to that model and how you educate the customer, diffuse them, overcome them, etc.?
Yeah, all the time. It's a constant uphill battle at Procore is this revenue-based pricing model, because a lot of people, they hear it and they go, oh, Procore's taking a cut of my profits. That's ridiculous. Like I have to give them a percentage. And oftentimes the actual rate is very inflated in their eyes. I've cold called a guy. He's, dude, I'm not giving you guys a percentage of my revenue. And I'm like, just time out. Do you know that it's like 0.1? Like it's 0.1%? But before we even get to the pricing model, are you aware of how small it is? And I think just disabusing people of the notion that it's like this massive percentage of the revenue is the first order of operations. But then outside of that, like they'll say, dude, we don't agree with that. We're used to paying a seat-based or license-based model. That seems unfair. And the retort to that is, hey, Procore prides itself on being an unlimited user-based subscription. That's kind of the whole reason people love our product is like, you can buy our products and you can literally invite anyone to use it. You've got subcontractors that work underneath you. You want to collaborate with them, invite them in. That's the whole point of the product. So if we're not going to charge you on users, we're not going to charge you on data storage, like, okay, what do you want us to charge you on? We got to measure you somehow. So kind of just owning that with them and knowing that like we have a unique model, but like the reality is there's benefits to it. I think it gets people to look at it from a different perspective.
Mark, this has been a killer episode, but the clock is ticking and we got to move to the final question, which is this. We've talked about a lot of really good things salespeople should be doing. Now I got to ask you about a shouldn't. And so the last question is, what is one bad habit that you see a lot of salespeople exhibiting that you think they need to break because it hurts them more than it helps?
Great question. I think there's a lot of different things. I would keep it simple. And I would say when it comes to crunch time or big deals or negotiating, people have a propensity for emailing when the best thing for them to do is pick up the phone and call the prospect. And if they just build that strength and they say, I'm picking up the phone and I'm calling this person, they will resolve more of their problems. And so default towards the phone call first, email second.
That is the damned truth. Mark, thank you for joining us. Everybody stick around for a 60-second recap coming up soon.
Folks, it's time for a 2x2 recap from this episode with Mark Nietzel. Nick, what do you have for your 2?
So number one is what you heard from Mark in this episode is he will show a Harbor Tour high-ish level demo when he gets a couple use cases from his prospect. What he is doing before showing that demo, however, is, of course, in the beginning of the meeting, he's setting that purpose, agenda, outcome, but he is reestablishing that agenda before he gets into that Harbor Tour. He tells them what he's going to show them, he shows them, and then he tells them what he showed them and anchors back to that outcome. So don't be afraid to set multiple agendas when you have a meeting that runs in that manner. Actually, moving backwards for number 2, in order to figure out what he's going to show in that agenda, his job in the beginning is to figure out one problem or use case that he could show to the prospect. And then he dangles the carrot and says, hey, I'm going to show you how to solve that problem of you pouring concrete at the wrong job site and having to go buy more. Could you give me 2 or 3 other use cases or problems you're looking to solve so I have some more stuff to show you? I will show you exactly how we solve those things. So dangle that carrot to be able to get a little more discovery right before you go into the demo.
Number 3, going backwards again. At the beginning of your sales call, anchor to an outcome or a decision that you want them to make at the end of the call. It could be as simple as saying, hey, the goal of this call is to figure out whether or not it's even worth your time to keep evaluating us at Procore. And lastly, number 4, when you are delivering that outcome, do not be afraid to be disarmingly blunt about your role or your interests or the decision they have to make. For example, if you're entering a rip and replace deal, you might literally say, honestly, the goal is to figure out if it's even worth spending 2 to 4 times what you're spending right now and all the pain of doing the new implementation just to achieve the benefits that you might get out of switching to Procore. Sound good? Alrighty, Nick, how can people help us out here?
So we did a lot of moving backwards in this 2x2 recap, and folks, I'm going to encourage you all to move backwards as well. We got introduced to Mark from one of his colleagues at Procore, Michelle Nietzel. And Jen Allen and I actually interviewed Michelle all the way back in episode 219. And so if you like the way that Mark sells, I promise you, you would get a lot out of listening to that episode with Michelle. So go back in time or just look in the show notes. There is a link to that episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week on the show.